goes wild. Welcome to the Altered Dominant Ego Man. And this is my channel now. He's a charlatan. I've taken over. And I'm going to tell you the real deal. You're going to hear it from me now. And he doesn't have control anymore, so I've taken over. And I want to tell you this about him that you don't know. And wait, hold on.
Hello, and welcome
hold on.
back, my friends. And I'm sorry about my alter ego trying to take over. And he thinks he's going to take over my jokes and my quotes and so on, but don't let him do that. So I'm going to just say to you...
Hey, I'm back, and I'm going to give you the quote of the evening. It comes from one of my favorite musicians, Thelonious Monk, and he said, "I say, play what you want to play. Don't play what the public wants to hear. Wait for them to catch on what you're playing. Even if it takes 15 or 20 years, play what you want to play." Now, I want to say this.
Okay, I heard what he said, and there is some credence to it. I know Miles Davis said a similar thing, but do you really want to alienate your audience? Do you want to have the musicians be here and the audience be here, and you're not in connection with your audience? I don't think so. Not for me. But anyway, he also misquoted Monk. He didn't get the quote right, and he mispronounced words, so I wouldn't put much value on it. But let's move on and continue now with this video, which will be a continuation of my videos on summertime modal jazz, and this one in particular will analyze the solo. So now if you haven't heard the solo, you can go back, but I'm going to replay it for you up the tempo and also on the slower tempo, and then I'm going to analyze it and dissect it, so to speak, on the next segment. So stick around. Here we go with the analysis of the summertime solo. you've heard the solo played up to tempo and then at the slower tempo, I'm going to show you each phrase. I'm going to play this as if the solo is under a microscope, and we're going to dissect it, or we're going to look at it phrase by phrase and analyze it that way, and maybe learn some things about the scales that I'm using and how I constructed this solo and put it together. Now, I wrote this solo out, which is more difficult than improvising it, for me. Anyway, but I'm going to start out now with the first chord, which is really, we're in D minor or D Dorian, which is based on the C scale starting on a D. Okay? So it's a D minor scale. Now I'm going to go up to the third position there of fourth voicings, which puts the minor third, the 6 and the 9 in the chord. So that's a D minor 6-9. And the melody I played was this. That's the first phrase. Now that's basically D Dorian. It's all that scale, that D minor scale. Up, skipping up, ascending, then descending stepwise. So skipping, ascending scale-wise, descending scale-wise, back down to the D and back down to the A, skipping down to the A. But that last part of the scale is the second mode C pentatonic, this one. So that'd be this scale. That's the second mode C. Remember, C is this pentatonic scale, major pentatonic scale. Second mode would be this D scale. Second mode D pentatonic. So I'm not playing these notes. Now you may say, well, why does that make it? Why do you even care? Well, it is part of that scale, and a lot of times I'm going to use segments of a pentatonic scale, not the whole thing, because if I just use the whole thing, it would sound very mechanical. I'm going to use segments of it, parts of it, and make it connect to important target tones or interesting target tones. So in this case, it's this one. So I'm going to there. Now, why is that a good connection? Because the next chord is a B flat 13, and that's the 13th right there. How do I know that's the 13th? Well, there's the 8. I'm going to play a B flat scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I'm connecting to the 13. Now this is just a B major pentatonic there. Those next notes. Now I go to this interesting target tone, which is a tension tone on the A13. It's a flat 9. But then I immediately resolve it to the 1, and then I go up here to the augmented 5th of the chord, and then down to the 5. So I'm kind of sequencing the idea like this, and then resolving it there to a strong target tone on the D minor. So you see, so in that first part of the solo, there's a lot of things going on, but it makes sense. Like you have to make sense out of, melodic sense out of using the scales. So like now again. So here's the complete idea, and it makes sense. Now, a lot of times when you improvise, you'll make mistakes or you'll hit wrong notes or so on. See, now this, there's no wrong notes because it was intellectualized through a process of writing it down. And students of improvisation, I often ask them to do this. Write down your ideas and work them out, and then practice them, and then work them up to tempo. In other words, start very slowly, then work them up to a tempo, and then try to understand it and make it sound like it's spontaneous. Like to be able to play a written solo and make it sound spontaneous, the only way I can do it is take a few liberties with the phrasing and try to, what I would say, embellish it. And particularly take liberties with the timing so that it sounds like it's improvised. Now, the next phrase is, again, the second mode of the C pentatonic, which is this, C major pentatonic. Second mode would be this. So this phrase now goes like this. Then I go here, and that's D Dorian again. But this, that just even that amount, little amount of it is part of that pentatonic scale. But it's up, skipping up, then down to here. Now when you put the left hand in there, it makes more sense really, like this. So I harmonized it like that with your fourth voicings to there now, which again is your D minor 6/9 chord. Now this next scale is kind of interesting, diverging from what we've heard before, but now I have a D7 sharp 9, which is setting up the next chord, which is the 4 chord. And so I want some tension there, so I'm going to put it, I'm going to make it a dominant chord to go to the G minor, you know, like this, the G minor there, but I'm going to make that a dominant 7th there and a sharp 9 there with an augmented 5th. A lot of tension in that chord. Now what scale am I going to use? Well, I'm using actually an F Phrygian scale like this. Now that's a little complicated, but Phrygian just means it's the third step of a major mode. So what's the third step? F is the third step of D flat major scale. Or you can call it C sharp if you like, but D flat there. Now, if I played Phrygian, there's Ionian, here's Dorian, here's Phrygian. There's that Phrygian. It's kind of like, it's been used a lot in Spanish music like this. Can you hear that? So Chick Corea used this scale, of course, because he played a lot of Spanish-oriented jazz, but now I'm using it in a unique way over the D7 sharp 9, like that. So there's that Phrygian scale over that D7 sharp 9. See how it picks up all the notes in the chord? So now I have the major third, the augmented 5th, the flat 7th, the sharp 9, and this scale sounds really great on that chord. Then resolves to here, the G minor 9. On the G chord, which is the 4 chord, I'm playing a figure that fits a Dorian scale. I'll show you. The figure goes like this. Then it moves down to an F minor 7, and I repeat the figure but alter it slightly. But see, that's a sequence. It's repeating an idea. So you have that, and then now that scale, the G minor scale, is Dorian, which means that it's an F scale starting on G. That's the F scale, so the Dorian, G Dorian is this. Now if it was G natural minor, it would have the E flat in it, relative to the key of B flat, but I want to keep that natural E in there. So the F minor, now that's the same thing. It's an F Dorian, which is the same as an E flat scale starting on F. So E flat is this, 3 flats, so the F minor is, that's F minor Dorian, which fits that pattern. Okay, hang in there with me. I need to have pauses so I can collect my thoughts because I'm not using a script. Anyway, I'm on the G minor chord. Now remember the melody went like this. There's the approach to the G minor, which is the 4 chord now. And then you could go like this to the 5, or, you know. But I'm going actually through a cycle of fifths there on the 4 chord. I'm going. Let's start again. Which sounds nice to have that little cycle in there. Now, because there's a cycle of a G minor 7 to a C7 to an F minor 7 to a B flat 7, I can play a sequence, which is what I did. In other words, a phrase and then an answer to that phrase, or a phrase that copies it, but it's transposed. So these are whole steps apart, these 2 chords. So now I can play a phrase like this. I played this. Okay, and then I went to this. So it's similar. You see, it's an answer. here's the first idea. Goes to this. So there's, so that creates kind of a very logical kind of idea. This is a big Horace Silver thing. I got that idea from him, but a lot of the soloists, great players, have always done this, played sequences, and that's an intelligent way to play. In other words, play an idea like this. Now echo it. Makes a lot of sense, right? So I have this. So you want to learn how to do that with your phrases. Now, the next thing that happens is I go here, and I do another sequence like this. They're echoing each other. See, they're repeating. See, this makes sense out of your solo, is to have things that are cohesive, that one idea leads to the next. It doesn't have to always copy it, but it can complement. In other words, copying a sequence, you know, and then there's the idea of answering, like call and response, and there's also the idea of like imitating, and then contrasting. Okay, so there's all these different ways to do it, but here's one that imitates, like that. So now it's the A13 chord, and I'm playing off the flat 9, so it's that half step there. Then this one, now is there a scale in there, like, and then to this one, back to there again, then to there. Well, it's another Phrygian scale. It's an A Phrygian. Now, an A Phrygian, remember, it's the third step of a major scale, so it's an F scale. One flat there, so the A Phrygian is this. There, so now you can see that scale works perfectly with these chords. Then here. Okay, that takes us, then I have this approach tone to take me back to that target tone on the 5. Now we're going to continue from there. Now we're at the, that's the first 8 measures. That's all we've covered so far. Let's continue. This first phrase of the second half of the tune now is based on the scale of the second mode, C pentatonic. So that, again, it's this one. And here it is. See, there's that phrase, there's those notes now, like that. But I'm playing it like this. To there. So now I have to make sense out of that. It can't just be a bunch of notes. So I go there. And then I start the next phrase based on a B flat 13. Now I'm just going to use a B flat major pentatonic. Now that's this. Now that particular pentatonic works with a B flat dominant or a B flat major or a B flat major 7. So the B flat dominant there, the 13 chord. Now I'm starting it, instead of starting on the B flat, I'm starting it on an F, and it goes like this. So it goes like this. So it's there. Now it changes to the A chord here, the A13. Now I'm just playing a straight Mixolydian scale here now. What is that? A Mixolydian is just the 5th step of a scale, so it's a D scale starting on the 5th step. So it's, so and then it's this. So it's this. So it's that, just that part of the scale, not the whole scale, but just segments of it. Now here to the resolving to the target tone of the 3rd on the D minor. Now the next, here's another pentatonic scale used in this next phrase. Okay, that's a good phrase based on a pentatonic scale like this. Like, now just to vary it there, I went from a D minor 6/9 up to the D7 sharp 9. It sounds really nice with that phrase too. It's a little dissonant, but it still works, see? Like, this is sort of like playing outside of the scale. In other words, you're playing a certain scale, but it doesn't really fit the chord. It doesn't fit the chord, but it's a little out, which is to have in and outs are really interesting. So, like that. It works. You may have to adjust your ear to accept this, but it's a fifth mode pentatonic, so that means it's an F scale. It's an F pentatonic scale, but it's the fifth mode. That means it's starting on there, starting, you know, really like starting on the D, like that one. So there, here it goes. D minor, D7 sharp 9. Now we have a tritone substitute. What is that? That's approaching the F7 chord now. Just means it's approaching it from a half step above, and we have this now. The melody is this. So that's the F7. In the original music, it went back to the 1 chord like this. But now we're making it hipper by playing it in a jazz context. We're going to do the hip chords. So like F13 to a B flat 13. But I did this. I did triplets. Now we don't have triplets yet, and I should emphasize the fact that a good solo has a variety of different rhythmic factors within the phrasing. In other words, you're going to use quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, eighth note triplets, quarter note triplets, which this is. Well, actually, this is eighth note triplets like this. So those are eighth note triplets. Here we go. Now that's just an F major pentatonic, like that. So here it goes. To that 13th note there, supporting the 13th in the chord. And now I just have, here I have something, another pentatonic scale. See, now that there's a little rub in there, but it's still that pentatonic scale. So that there's a certain thing that holds this whole this solo together, and those are pentatonic scales. Now this one is third mode, fifth major. Now what is that? I'm sorry, let me say that again. Third mode, F major pentatonic. So you have this. There's the F major pentatonic. Third mode of it would be starting on A like this. Why is that the third mode? Because there's the first mode. Second mode would be this. Third mode would be this. So now we're starting here, like up an octave. So there you see, it works nicely with the A7 flat 13 I used there. See? It's pentatonic. It has that pentatonic sound to it. Then resolving there. Now the next thing that happens is I do this chordal passage, which are parallel fourths, and I'll call it intervallic or diatonic and chromatic movement. So it starts on a D minor, goes up a half step, D minor 6/9, up a half step to an E flat minor sus, to an F minor, up a whole step to an F minor sus, up a minor third to an A flat minor sus. This is all they're all parallel. Down a half step to a G minor sus, down a minor third to an E minor sus, then down a half step to an E flat minor sus, and then back to the D minor. That takes us to the second chorus. So let's listen to that passage again from the approach. That's pure McCoy Tyner, John Coltrane passage, like this. Like that. So you can read it on the sheet and then listen to it. Right, my alter ego is going to tell you I'm not a scholar, I'm a jazz musician, but anyway, I'm trying to create clarity here. So now, I want you to know that these chords are off the beat. They're not on the beat, and that's important. So I'm not talking that much about the rhythmic factors in the phrasing, but it is important here that they be off the beat. So like this would be from the phrase above, before it. Now you can't really hear that because you're not hearing a bass and a drums, but like it's like this. If I counted, it'd be like 1 and let's get that. 1 and a 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and like that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 like that. So they're upbeats like. So you're just hearing me alone, you can't tell those are upbeats. But now continuing. Now this next thing that I wrote, I wanted to show like how you could play a sequence and move it around in a variety of ways. In other words, random phrases, but that go chromatic or go off the scale. So it's in and out playing kind of thing again. So like I'm using a D minor here. Now I'm creating a D minor sus. So I'm going D minor 6, 9, minor 3, 5, 6, 9, and then I'm transposing it up to here. So the same phrase like this. Like that. Actually this. And then I'm putting chords to it like this. D minor 6, 9, G 13. A flat 13, up a half step. Down a whole step, G flat. That just shows you a little bit of the modal concept and the McCoy-Tyner concept of being able to play in the scale and out of the scale and moving it up in half steps or whole steps like that. And I think I kind of phrased it a little bit differently, like maybe like this. Maybe like. And I ended back up on the D minor. Then continuing, here's another F Phrygian scale on the same chord, which is the D7 sharp 9. I did something like this to get up here now to the G minor with these melodic minor phrases now that it's sequence. I did that like that. Now I want to echo that like, or like maybe I did this. And then like, so you see the sequence of the phrase. To here. Now this is an altered dominant scale, this one like a diminished scale, but now like just simple like that. You know, you have to have some point where you're at rest or you're grounding it. If everything is moving all the time, it's not balanced. You have to have movement and then pauses where you're holding a note. That's a very important point. To have balance. Now here's that altered dominant scale again. And I use the chromatic approach there. Down here now, third mode, F pentatonic. What is that? So there's the F major pentatonic. So the third mode would be starting on the A like this. Well, let's get that. Like that. There's the scale. Now here it is. So it's that, because the G is in there, you see? G is in there. And the A is in there too. There's Dorian again. Dorian scale. Dorian scale, pretty much, you can play any note in that, any of the white notes, really. So, now I've lost you, so let's look at the continuity of the phrases. I have this. So there's a phrase, a melodic phrase. Then this. Taking me to that chord, then the tritone substitute again. And here's the last, then I'm going to state the melody here, based on the F major pentatonic scale. So that's the all F pentatonic, major pentatonic. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Actually, I could probably do 10 videos on just this one solo, talking about different aspects of it, but because there's rhythmic aspects, there's phrasing aspects, there's scale aspects, there's, target tones, approach tones, there's so many things in a solo. And, you may feel overwhelmed and like, how am I going to learn this or how am I going to do this? Well, all you need to do is learn one aspect of this. Just learn some of the pentatonic scales and try them out in a simple way, maybe on a song like So What, where there's just two scales you're involved with, to try to incorporate them into complicated chord progressions, which this song really isn't that complicated. It's a rather simple song. But even then, you know, there's complications. And again, going back to the idea of the ambiguity and the flexibility and the variety and versatility of the scales and these chord type of voicings, these fourth voicings have a lot of versatility and ambiguity to them, and so on. But the most important thing, I think, to reap from all of this is how to put it all together. In other words, take some of these techniques and ideas about scales and phrases and so on and put them together in a cohesive solo in which you're using sequences, in which you're using ideas or melodic ideas. In other words, the melodic ideas hold it together, and the approach tones and the target tones hold the whole thing together and make sense out of it. If you don't have that, then it doesn't make sense. But this is a good way the modal technique is a good way to modernize your solo and to go beyond the bounds of just bebop music and hard bop, to go into another level with it, which is more complex and is more simple. And that's a fascinating aspect of it.
You see what I mean? He lost you. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and you're buying into it. Now I say give him a thumbs down, and then you're buying into me. If you give him a thumbs up, then you're rejecting me. So this is the truth now. Tell the truth. I know you're not understanding what he's talking about there. So forget about this guy. He doesn't listen to me. I got the answers. I got the...
I heard what he said, and I'm not buying into it. So don't you either. And let's buy into positive thinking. His was negative. Let's buy into positive thinking and keep our music alive and give it the spirit that we need to have to move forward. Let me encourage you. And in the words of my great friend Hermie Dressel, he said, swing loose. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.